Uh, Thanks everyone and welcome. Um, I really appreciate you coming to this information session, and I'm especially grateful to Jason Cavallari, who is director of the University Fellowships Program and Fellowships Office, who's going to give us a rundown on some of the opportunities that are available to international studies majors and minors, like other majors and minors here at BC, to for fellowships and scholarships that can help fund academic study, travel, research, et cetera, both as an undergraduate and post-graduation. And I know all of you are familiar with some of these big name ones like the Fulbrights and the Rhodes and Gates and things like that. But there are also many, many other really terrific fellowship programs and scholarships that don't have the same fellowship component to them that are underserved. Here there are BC fellowships that don't get to give out all their money because people don't ask for them or apply for them. And there are national programs that you all are terrifically well qualified for that aren't well enough known and people aren't submitting their names for. So it's important for us to get the information out. And Jason is our expert here at BC, and so I've asked him to speak for a little bit to you all as majors and minors in the IS program. We'll put this online as well, along with links in the chat to the University Fellowships webpage and anything else. Feel free to also ask questions in the chat while he's going through his slides, and then we'll have an opening. We'll have about a half hour for questions or so afterwards, or as long as you'd like afterwards. Okay, so thanks so much, and Jason, welcome.
Thank you. So hi everybody, I'm Jason Cavallari. As Professor Owen said, I am the Administrative Director of University Fellowships, which means that I deal with a lot of really high achieving students to take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that are out there. But what Professor Owens has also said is also true, that we have a lot of these opportunities that are really underutilized. There are given years where we don't have people apply for a bunch of them, and I would really like to see that change. And this is a good group of people to talk to about that, because a lot of the particularly underused ones are fellowships that would apply to the fields that you all are in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about fellowships as like a general category, talk a little bit about strategies for how to approach them, and then talk a little bit more specifically about some of the specific programs that would appeal to people in your field of study. So let me see if this works. Oop. All right, can everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, cool, thank you. All right, so yeah, here we are, a quick and dirty guide to fellowships and scholarships. So generally, these awards fall into three different categories. There's a lot of overlap between them as well. These aren't hard and fast rules, but generally speaking, this is how I tend to look at them. The first category would be the scholarship category. These are ones that include partial or complete funding to pursue some kind of degree, either undergrad or grad, and either in the U.S. or the U.S. or internationally. This category will include things that you've probably heard of, like the Rhodes Scholarship, the Marshalls, the Fulbrights in certain respects, et cetera, et cetera. The second category are ones that apply exclusively to people that have graduated. So these are things that you would apply for as a senior. And I categorize these as postgraduate experience, meaning that these are things that are not necessarily tied to getting a degree or any kind of study program. You can kind of think of them like internships or research assistantships, or some kind of experience like that. The lion's share of the Fulbright program are going to be something like this. There's a few others, like the Gaither Carnegie Junior Fellows program, the Scoville Peace Fellowship, and a couple of others that I'll talk about shortly. The last category is ones that fund study abroad programs. I am not going to talk about that one a great deal, mostly because those are handled by the Office of International Programs. But if any of you are thinking about studying abroad sometime in the future, those are awards that you might want to think about because they can really help defray or even completely cover the cost of a semester or a year studying abroad. And if you're interested in them, you should talk to Christina Hatzapetros in the OIP because she is the guru for that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are generally the categories of the awards that we're talking about. All of them are going to have some variation on these 5, sort of common components for their applications. So there's going to be usually a somewhat lengthy personal or biographical information section. You're going to need to submit transcripts, letters of recommendation. Average is about 3. So actually, the most common one is probably about 3, and then a few others require like 5 or 8, or up from there. There's going to be 1 or more essays. Usually one of them is a personal statement. In some cases, that'll be the only essay. In some cases, it'll be one of a set. And you'll likely have to submit a resume or a CV along with your application. So almost any application that you open for any of these awards is going to have these things in it. In addition to that, depending on the program, some of them will also have more specific components that apply just to that program. Those can be in any number of different categories, but these are some of the more common ones that you tend to see. So an institutional endorsement letter, which basically comes from me, I write it, basically meaning that BC has sort of examined all the candidates and like we endorse you for this particular award. There's if you're applying for any kind of arts award, you need to provide a portfolio. Some of them require video essays or video introductions. A lot of them will have some kind of field specific essay. For example, if you're going to apply to a Fulbright for research, you need to provide a research proposal. If you're applying for Truman, you have to submit a policy proposal idea, etc. And then the last relatively common thing would be 1 or more interviews. Fulbright has one before you can even submit your application. A lot of them will have interviews only if you make the finalist round. But again, something to be aware of and possibly prepare for if that's part of the programs that you're looking at. Okay, so how do we approach these things? As Professor Owen said, there's a lot of these opportunities out there, and we certainly do not recommend that you apply for all of them. A, that would be way too much work, and B, you probably wouldn't have a shot of getting maybe 75% of them because they all have really specific things that they're looking for, and so you're gonna meet the requirements of some and not meet the requirements of others, and that's okay. Generally speaking, however, these are the things that almost all of these programs are going to look at, okay, in addition to whatever specific parameters they're looking for. So to get started, you should choose, based on that information, you should choose programs that you think you'd be interested in and learn more about them. Okay, so this takes a little bit of footwork on your part to read up a little bit about the scholarships and the fellowship programs and see which ones really fit what it is you're looking to do. That will help you narrow down the field drastically as to the types of programs that you'd be a good fit for and the ones that match your future plans. All of them will have websites that detail eligibility requirements, what the applications look like, when the due dates are, etc. So they're a really good place to get information. Number 2, all of them are going to look for academic achievement. Now, what that means is certainly up for interpretation, but only so much. There are a lot of ways to sort of size up this idea of achievement. But generally speaking, if you go just by GPA, it kind of varies all over the place. But the lowest I've seen get one is probably like a 3.4. And that's sort of on the low end for a lot of these. Most of them will have a hard cutoff at 3.7. Some of them won't have a stated cutoff, but they'll expect applicants to be somewhere in the upper GPA ranges. So it really, it depends on the program, like how they define academic achievement. And then B, it's sort of supplemented by what you've done with your academics in addition to just your grade point average. So that'll lead into the third one, which is to take advantage of opportunities that are available to you. This can include tons and tons of different types of things, but in particular, you should be looking at perhaps opportunities to do your own research projects, possibly presenting something at a conference or getting something published, even if it's just in a campus journal. That's completely fine. Taking advantage of research assistantships on campus, conference travel grants, thesis grants, the ability to and the opportunity to write a senior thesis, as well as doing a lot of the sort of non-academic things. So, joining clubs or activities that maybe fall in line with some of the things that you're interested in academically. Doing some of the retreats or the service programs, or getting involved in the community, or any of those kinds of things are going to really not inflate, but make an application really stand out, because those are the things that's going to set you apart from a lot of the other applicants. You have to kind of think of it, as if you were a member of the committee choosing amongst these things. They're looking at, hundreds of applications, and all of them have 3.8s and 3.9s and 4.0s. They're looking for things that are going to, make some people stand out from the crowd. And that's where taking advantage of these various opportunities can really help your application, sparkle, to use a really sort of foofy phrase. Okay, so number 4, like I said earlier, any of these applications is going to need at least probably 3 letters of recommendation. And so as a strategy, you really should meet people, and particularly ones that will be able to write good recommendations for you. A good recommendation is not necessarily just a letter that says, I had this student in my class and they did really well. Okay, tons of people can write that kind of letter. It doesn't make a huge impact for people reading it and trying to evaluate an application. The ones that do make an impact are the ones where the recommender can write not just about your academic capabilities, but their interactions with you outside of a classroom, the conversations they've had, knowledge of your activities, your ambitions. It's, maybe know you a little bit on a personal level, can speak to your personality, or those are kinds of things that are going to give reviewers a really well-rounded picture of you as an applicant. And that's, again, one of the things that's going to make your application stand out. So take that really seriously. Meet people, and particularly people that would be able to write a good recommendation for you. Last strategy, and this perhaps goes without saying, but you would be surprised how many people show up maybe 2 weeks before the deadline and are like, I don't know what to do. Get organized and do it now. Do it as soon as you possibly can. That way you'll know, timelines, you'll know what you need to provide, what kinds of activities or things you might want to be able to get involved in between then and now. Just to sort of have it in the background and begin to build up a portfolio that will make you a competitive applicant for some of these things. It is really, never too early, even though most of these won't apply until you're at least a junior. It's really never too early to sort of have a game plan if you're interested in pursuing these things. Okay, I'm going to skip these because these are for people in STEM programs. However, I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about some of the opportunities that are available to students in the social sciences, and almost all of these are really heavily in the sort of poli-sci area. So these, the ones on this particular slide are ones that are sort of generalized, meaning that they don't necessarily have to be in political science, but they're, generally speaking, they are for people that are in the social sciences. And they do tend to have a political science bent to them. So, for example, numbers 1 and 2, the David Weil Scholarship, which is a fully funded master's program at Sciences Po in Paris, France, tends to, again, lean towards poli-sci because it's at Sciences Po. So, but that's one that's really been particularly underused at BC. We've had, I think that it's been around for something like 7 years. We've had one applicant. And there's really no reason why more people shouldn't apply for it, because it's fully funded. It's in English. You don't need to know French. And it's really just an opportunity to study at one of the most well-known universities in the Western Hemisphere, or sorry, in the West. Number two, we don't have that problem. We have a lot of people applying for Truman's. But again, it's sort of one of these things where it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's interested in political science or going into politics or anything like that. But it is meant for people that are looking to go into a career in public service, however that's defined. Consequently, it does tend to draw a bunch of people from the poli-sci field. Typically, it leans more towards people that work in domestic policy as opposed to international stuff. But that's not to say that people that are in international studies can't apply. The Truman Scholarship is an undergraduate scholarship, so you can apply for it when you're, I believe, when you're sophomore. Sophomores and juniors can apply for like a year of undergraduate funding, if I'm remembering right. The last two on this list are ones that fall into that like postgraduate experience kind of category, because they're not tied to a degree program. Essentially, what these are their internships or research assistantships to work for think tanks in Washington, D.C. The Gaither Junior Fellows Program is an assistantship with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. And the Scoville Peace Fellowship is a research assistantship that's affiliated with a bunch of different organizations in Washington, D.C., and you get to choose the organization that you want to apply to. Both of them are really excellent opportunities. They tend to be a little idiosyncratic because they're very, very specific in the kinds of applicants they're looking for. And they're somewhat limited in that we can definitely only nominate 2 students for the Gaither Award, and I think there's a similar limit for the Scoville. However, if you do manage to sort of snag one, it's a really great opportunity to get some hands-on experience. And it's for up to 2 years as well. So if you're looking for postgraduate plans that don't include going to graduate school right away, these are good opportunities for that. All right, along with those, there's a trio of awards that are specifically geared towards people that are looking to go into the Foreign Service. They are the Harryman, the Pickering, and the Wrangell fellowships. The Harryman is for undergrads to do a summer internship with the US State Department. So you don't have to, I don't think you have to be a junior, but I could be misremembering that part. So maybe sophomores can apply, I'm not really sure. In any event, this is not a post-grad thing. This is for a summer during your undergraduate studies. The Pickering Fellowship is graduate funding for particularly underrepresented groups that intend to go into the U.S. Foreign Service. So ethnic minorities, women, LGBT individuals, and so on. And then the Wrangell is very similar to the Pickering. In fact, I don't actually know what the specific difference is between them. I tried really hard to find out what it was, and I actually don't know. In any event, all 3 of these are advised by Professor Nakazato, whom most of you probably at least know of, if don't know personally. So if you're interested in applying to any of these, you should definitely talk to him about them. These are particularly ones that are also sort of underused at Boston College. So I've been doing this for something like 10 years. And I think we've only had maybe a handful of applicants for all 3 of these combined. And we have had one winner. We had somebody win the Harriman, I think 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. All right, the last category here is one that's really specific, but it's also an excellent opportunity. So it's the Udall Scholarship, and this is particularly for undergrads who are interested in environmental policy, which again doesn't necessarily have to be domestic, although it tends to sort of prefer that, and or Native American issues. I don't know why those 2 are put together, but they are. And again, this is an undergraduate scholarship, so this is something you can apply for before you graduate. We have had people apply for this. Again, in recent years, it's been kind of, again, underused, but, and we even had a winner, I want to say like 5 years ago. So again, we have a record with this. We have a relationship with this particular program, and I would like to see more people interested in it, especially since sort of environmental sciences and environmental studies are sort of picking up steam as a really strong area of focus. We can skip these humanities one. Okay. So in addition to those ones, which are generally speaking, again, largely for people in the social sciences and really have a very strong political science bent, these are opportunities that are open to people that work in any field, essentially. All of them are for graduate study, so they fund either master's or PhD programs at either a specific university or a choice of universities. And so they're all for people that are going to be graduating in the near future. You can also apply for these up to several years after you graduate. So it's not like you have to decide to go to graduate school right away after you graduate. So if you want to take a year or two off before you think about going to grad school, and then you think about applying to these things, you can certainly still do that. So amongst these, you'll probably notice some of the really well-known names. So for example, the Rhodes is again, a graduate scholarship to attend Oxford University specifically. The Marshall is very similar to the Rhodes, except there's a choice of partner institutions, again, in the United Kingdom. The Mitchell is very similar to the previous two, except it's partner institutions in Ireland or Northern Ireland. The Gates, again, very similar, except it's not Oxford, it's for Cambridge. And then we have a bunch that are a little bit more wishy-washy. So Fulbright is an enormous program. It operates in over 90 countries across the globe. And not all of the programs support graduate study. A lot of them are either teaching grants, where you would go and teach English in a foreign country for a year, or they're research grants for you to do a research project that you've designed. However, in a handful of countries, mostly in the English-speaking ones, they are tied to degree programs at various universities in the country. So this is true for the UK, it's true for Australia, it's even true for some non-English speaking countries. So like the Netherlands has a few, Mexico has a few, Italy has one. So there are some opportunities within the huge scope of the Fulbright program to attend graduate school on a Fulbright scholarship. However, I mean, if you're interested in applying for any of these, any of the various permutations of what the Fulbright funds, like, do look into it. Number 6 on the list is the Lilly Graduate Fellowship. It is for students going to graduate programs at religiously affiliated universities. Again, this is weirdly sort of underused at BC. So again, I mean, if anybody's applying to any religiously affiliated institution, and particularly Catholic affiliated institutions for graduate school, really consider the Lilly. It's an excellent funding opportunity. The last two are relatively new. The Schwarzman has been around for, I want to say, maybe 5 years.
Sorry, we lost your Jason. We lost your audio, Jason. I'm sorry, I lost your audio at least. Can other students hear him? No, yeah. Your audio cut out just a second ago, Jason, while you're talking about Schwartzman. That sounds.
Am I back?
Well, yep, you're back. There you go.
There
Thanks.
we go. Okay, sorry.
You were just starting on Schwartzman.
Oh, okay.
Just starting on Schwartzman.
Okay, so yeah, so the last two are relatively new in the last 5 years. The Knight Hennessy is really an excellent opportunity because it's a fully funded graduate program at Stanford University. And they do mean any graduate program. So if anybody is looking to go to law school and want to go to Stanford Law, the Knight Hennessy will fund that. It will also fund medical school if anybody's looking to do that as well. It is one of the very few fellowship programs that will offer funding for professional graduate programs like law school or medical school. However, it is specifically for Stanford University, so you have to get into Stanford. But yeah, it's, if you can get it, that's an excellent opportunity. The other relative is the Sports Scholarship. It's a fully funded master's program at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China. And it's all taught in English, so you don't need to know Chinese. It's got a whole separate campus. You live there with the cohorts. They set you up with an internship for the summer, and they take you on tours of the country and introduce you to people, and they do the master's program, etc. The key is that it has a focus on China and China's role in the world, in particularly in global politics and economics. So if any of you have an interest in China or East Asian politics generally, this is probably a really good opportunity. We have had people apply for it in the past with no success, but again, it's really underused, probably because it's a little bit specific, but again, a good opportunity if you can manage to make it work for you. Okay, so those are the categories, the strategies, and a lot of the specific specific programs that might appeal to some people. So let's see. Okay, I'm back. All right, so if there are any questions about any of this stuff, or you want me to go, talk about something a little bit more, please feel free.
I have a question.
Yep.
I was wondering about the David Wheel Scholarship. Is it possible to take a master's program like conducted in French through that, or only in English?
That would probably be up to the discretion of the program itself. It is advertised as an English only program.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think that would exclude you from taking courses in French at Sciences Po. I think to just say that so it's sort of not a necessity.
And then when you're applying for programs like these for postgraduate, do you apply for them your senior year?
So this is going to depend on the timeline. So generally speaking, yes, the applications will be due during your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, however, are due like at the end of September. So I usually start working with students the spring semester before that, so that we can continue our work over the summer so that you're ready for the deadline when it comes up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chloe, did you want to ask a question, or do you?
Yeah, I can ask. So I was wondering about the let's see, what was it called? The Harryman.
Yep.
One? And if you have to apply to the State Department internship through kind of like the Harryman portal, or you apply through the State Department portal and then get the scholarship fellowship after. How does that work?
So I believe that, if I'm remembering right, again, it's been a while since I've actually advised that particular program, but I believe that the applications are one and the same for that. So if you apply to the Harriman, I believe it's automatically you're applying to the internship program as well.
Okay.
That is not the case for a lot of these. So for example, a lot of the graduate study ones, you have to apply to both the fellowship program and to the school separately.
Okay, and so if someone were to already apply for the State Department internship, can they not apply for the Harryman after they've submitted that application?
That is a good question. Let me see if I can find an answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think is Professor Nakazato the faculty liaison?
Yeah, he is. Well? Yeah,
so one thing to note is that most of these fellowships, if not all of them, and Jason, you can correct me, have a faculty contact who is responsible for organizing inquiries and working on recommendations and things like that. And all of you are notified in the IS program that Professor Christensen is the Fulbright director here at PC. So that's the most typically what people know, but other ones have faculty directors as well. And in addition to that, there are faculty here who have either held these awards in the past or have helped select them at places who are outside of Boston College. Like Peter Martin, for example, was on the ambassadorial staff in the Vatican and helped work on Pickering fellowships and things like that. So there are people around who have some expertise, and we're working here in the IS program and putting some of these network resources on our webpage that will tell you IS graduates who have received these awards and faculty who were happy to talk to you and advocate for you on these programs and things like that. This is just part of a phase of us gathering information to put on a fellowships page on our website.
Yeah, so what Professor Owens is correct. A lot, I mean, because there are so many, I can't advise them all myself. So yeah, so we do, you know, sort of parcel them out amongst faculty that have a particular expertise, either with the program or in the field. I do advise a bunch of them. So for like, I'm a Fulbright advisor. I'm the contact for the Gaither Junior Fellows Program, for the David Weil Scholarship at Sciences Po, and a bunch of others. So some of these, yeah, you would come to me. A lot of them, it's usually best to go directly to the administrator on campus. So yeah, if you're interested in the Harriman, you should definitely talk to Professor Nakazato because he'll know a lot more of the ins and outs than I will at this point.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, hi, Paris. We're having trouble hearing you though. It's very, no, we can't hear. It's it's like very staticky distance. Yeah, you can type it in the chat. No problem. Sorry about that. I'll mute you though. While we're waiting for that, are there any other questions? Could you speak, well, while we're waiting for that, Jason, could you speak a bit about nationality as a requirement? Are there programs for which only non-American citizens cannot apply? In particular, I imagine most of these are American citizens are welcome to apply, but are there those that you've mentioned or those that are important that are not eligible for non-Americans?
So generally speaking, the rule of thumb is going to be you have to be either a US citizen or a US permanent resident. There are some for which that is not a requirement, and some for which it's not a requirement under special circumstances. So for example, we had a Rhodes finalist last year's Rhodes finalist was not a US citizen, she was a Chinese citizen. But she was able to apply through the United States because the majority of her education had been in the United States. So she was able to apply through the US. Otherwise, she would have had to apply through China. Some of them do have an international pool. So again, Rhodes has an international pool. I believe Marshall has an international pool as well. So if you're not a citizen of the US, you can apply if they do have an international pool, but it's usually separate from the US one. And it typically has its own timetable and its own set of requirements.
Okay. So you see the question in the chat here? Yeah.
Oh, for the Pickering, what does it actually cover? More of a fellowship where you're applying internship type program. It's more of a like a fellowship type program. So it's essentially, I believe what they do is they pay you something like a salary to work for the Foreign Service for a specified period of time.
Yeah, and there are some that like the Wrangell and the one of the others that maybe it's Harriman that with regard to the State Department, it funds graduate programs that help lead into a service in the State Department. So it's related, and they have programming that brings you to Foggy Bottom to talk to people, ambassadors and staffers and things. But it's actually a graduate program that's related. So it's important to investigate which of these.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now. There is a graduate program associated with the Pickering. Although it doesn't necessarily have to be associated with the Pickering. So basically what happens is the Pickering itself is an opportunity to work in the Foreign Service for, I believe it's like 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, one of our students, she actually wrote an Alumni Voices piece earlier this year. A graduate from about 5 years ago did at Pickering, and a graduate program through Pickering at Hopkins at SAIS, and then went to work at the State Department and finished her year of training and is off to Shanghai, I think, as her first posting
Oh, wow.
this fall. So
Sure.
yeah, other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Jason, thank you for a
Yes, Sunny.
presentation. I'm pretty interested in the Gather Junior Fellow assistantship in Carnegie Endowment. So
Yep.
I'm wondering like how the internal nomination works and how can we access the application materials?
Okay.
And also
so-
like about the kind of the success rate, like it has like BC alumni applied for that before, and yeah, so just
Okay.
kind of get a look at
Okay, so the Gaither Junior Fellows Program is, so the internal, okay, so yeah, we can only nominate 2 students to apply. So if we have more students than we can nominate, we have to have an internal competition, which usually entails coming up with a completed draft of your application prior, usually like a month to 6 weeks prior to the actual national deadline. And then myself and a couple of other faculty members sort of confer and choose which 2 to go forward. And then we work with those students until the national deadline, which is in mid-January. We usually have somebody apply, at least one person, and usually 2 people apply for it every year. So far, as long as I've been here anyway, we haven't had anybody win. And that's mostly because, well, I mean, I can't really say a lot of this stuff. It's kind of up in the air as to like why they don't tell us why they don't give it to somebody. But generally speaking, the Gaither is really hard to prepare for because it's very specific and it changes from year to year. So essentially what they're doing is they're hiring research assistants to work for the scholars who work at the Carnegie Endowment. Okay? Now, depending on who those scholars are, they can be looking for something really different from what they're looking for the year before that. Part of the application is you have to write an analytic essay on a prompt that they give you as part of the application. That's part of the way for them to be able to tell like if you have the expertise and the analytical skills necessary to work with that particular person. There's usually something like 6 or 7 different tracks or fields within the Carnegie application that you can choose from, and you apply to that track specifically, like whichever one you pick. Some of them are very specific. It's like you need to know Russian, Chinese, and Arabic, or or you need to be an expert in this small region of remote Asia or something. A lot of them are much more general. It's perhaps no surprise that the general ones are the ones that get the most applications and are therefore very competitive. But that's kind of the breakdown about how the Carnegie works. It's really hard to sort of pitch it to somebody, but if you can manage to make it work, it's an excellent opportunity.
Thanks,
Okay,
Sunny.
thank
Great
you.
question. Yeah. Other questions?
Oh, sorry, and I forgot to mention, if you are interested in applying, contact me because I have the application info.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or concerns or comments?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I had a quick question about applying, after graduating from BC. Is that something, do you go through Boston College or do you do that kind of on your own? For example, for like Fulbright or the Knight Hennessy type of program.
Oh, okay. So, well, there's a couple of ways to think about this. So, you certainly can apply on your own, although what that usually means is that you apply at large, and it does, so your application won't include any like institutional endorsements from BC. So we have people do it from time to time, especially people that have been away for like years and years and like nobody knows who they are anymore. Like that happens. However, it's usually a much stronger application if you can apply through BC. If you've graduated and you're a couple of years out, you can still apply through BC. In the case of the Fulbright, you can do it unless you've enrolled at another institution since then, or entered a graduate program, because then you have to apply for a graduate Fulbright. And in other cases, it sort of depends as well. So like, for example, if you wanted to apply for a Rhodes and you were like 3 or 4 years out, you could still do that through BC. Although if you were enrolled at another institution, they would probably expect you to apply through them. So there's no rule that says that you have to apply through that institution, but it's sort of what they expect. It's sort of like one of those unwritten kind of ritualistic deals, you know?
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay. Well, one of the things I think it's important to keep in mind, as Jason said earlier on, is that there are also fellowships and scholarships available for study abroad. And he mentioned, I think, Boren and the Gilman Fellowship. Yeah. There are also some internal Boston College funds, like the Agaz Family Fellowship, that funds travel to Islamic majority countries, I think it is. And these are frequently under applied for as well. There's money, some of the BC internal scholarship funds can't give their money out. So I hate to see a good scholarship go to waste. And, let's grab the piggy bank by its feet and shake it upside down, because wealthy universities like Boston College have that money for a reason. And that's to help you guys do the things you want to do the travel, to do the research, to do the scholarship, to do the study abroad and things like that. And it does take extra work on your part. I'm not going to lie. It takes research. It takes being proactive. It takes, following up a few times, especially if you're a sophomore and you want to go abroad. Now's the time to start asking about scholarship funds and things like that, and being proactive about it and writing some letters. People can also get scholarships from like local Rotary clubs and churches and synagogues and mosques and things like that. There's a lot of ways to help fund things when you're really looking for that. The prestigious fellowships that require really high-end academic work and things like that. That's another issue. That's another cluster as well. That's really important. And many of our students, if not most, are in that zone that would be terrific applicants for that. But there are also ones that are related to underserved groups and things like that. So really, just I encourage you to follow up with the link that I put at the very top of this chat around the University Fellowships office and the links that they have. Talk to OIP. Remember that if you want to go somewhere, if you're hungry to go somewhere as an undergraduate student, talk to your faculty advisor, talk to me, talk to Professor Nakazato. We will shake the bushes for you, and we will try to find money at the Klaus Center or the Center for Human Rights or at the business school or whatever. We'll try to find money for you. It doesn't mean that we always succeed in that. And it doesn't mean you won't have to write things or whatever, but we're here for you. And that's our goal, is to help you do the things that you're passionate about. And so help us help you. And, good luck with all that. We're really excited, and we're proud to have such terrific students in our program, and we want to help you flourish. So don't hesitate to reach out to us, and peer advisors too. Mariana is one of our peer advisors, and others as well. And we'll help direct you to the right people. Okay. Thank you, Jason, so much for taking the time to be here. Really generous of you. And thank you all for showing up. We'll post this online as well in a day or so for folks who weren't able to make it, and we'll share that link next week in the newsletter. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thanks so much. Whoops. Here,
Oops.
stop.
Hey.
Stop the recording.